Today's guest is Debbie Pierce. Debbie is a community minister, end-of-life doula, and Reiki master. Working with top brands in her successful advertising agency, Debbie lived the American dream for more than 30 years, until, as she puts it, her soul awakened. Beginning with a love of mushrooms and a deep connection with nature, Debbie eventually experienced mushrooms as a sacrament and discovered Psanctuary. She learned about life and love through understanding and embracing physical death, and completed training as an end-of-life doula. She also became a minister in Psanctuary and completed Level 3 Reiki training to support the healing journey of herself and others. Today's conversation covers Debbie's near-death experience, navigating despite the stiff current of mainstream religious perspective, Debbie's experience holding space for sacred mushrooms and those who are passing, and the understandings which the parallels between birth and death illuminate, and other topics. You're listening to Psilocybin Says. To support it, join the conversation in the YouTube comments. Subscribe on YouTube and podcasts, and stay connected on Instagram and TikTok. And now, please welcome Debbie Pierce.
Welcome to Psilocybin Says. Thanks for being here today.
Oh, so glad to be here.
Yes.
A long time coming. I've had to reschedule several times, but perseverance wins the day.
Here we are. Yeah, I'm so looking forward to our audience hearing more about you. You have so much good stuff to share. Debbie is, as you've heard in our introduction, one of our friends and family ministers at Psanctuary and one of our community ministers in training. And so, yeah, we got lots of great stuff to talk about today.
Yeah. Now, Debbie, very often I reflect back on our very first phone call. You probably remember that. And I was walking around in the lawn of the church out there on Frankfurt, and I got off that call and I was like, hell yes, more of these kinds of people, because you understood the mushroom. And I don't just mean psychedelics. You really seem to have a deep love and connection with the nature of the mushroom itself. So can you please just share with our audience some of your story of how you got involved with this amazing organism and where it's led you to currently?
Well, I was always pretty curious about them, like just how they weren't plants, really. They kind of were plants, maybe in my early days was, what are they? And then watched the Fantastic Fungi documentary. And from there, it was just like I was thrust into that world and just, couldn't wait to go out in the forest and just find different species. I didn't care if they were edible or psychedelic, just how creation or the source, the divine intelligence could make such amazing creatures and such amazing variety of them, and the power that they have to heal our planet and ourselves. And then that led to, I actually had an experience with psychedelic mushrooms. And then from there, I wouldn't say that it was a violent or, thrust into, but my whole life did start changing. I mean, it just saw life differently and the mushrooms differently, and even appreciated all mushrooms even that much more.
Can you talk a little bit about that first experience? What was that like for you?
It was a very gentle it was really a pretty gentle experience. The person that I work with, I think was cautious, not to give you too much, if you'd never been in that space before. And my intention was to connect with my mother, and I did, in a beautiful way. So, I think that though it wasn't for me in the mushroom space, it's not when you're in the space, that's one thing I get a lot, but my Lord, it goes on the gift it keeps giving every day. So so if I look back and think like, wow, what's happened over the last couple of years? Just like my life completely changed. But in a soft, it wasn't like it was very much a spirit-led, transition. And that came from the mushrooms. I was raised in a very strict Christian church. I have a lineage of long lineage of Lutheran ministers that came, centuries.
Okay.
Where the
Wow.
whole family was either a minister or a teacher, a parochial teacher. So I was raised in that for a long, long time. And when I explained to my family, the experience is that it's instead of reading about it, talking about it, praying about it, I'm experiencing it through the mushrooms. So that love and that, all of the things take on a whole different meaning and a much more direct. And if you think about other things in your life, the way that you really, really learn something is experiencing it, right? And so we can learn and study and do, listen to all these people about what you should and shouldn't do in certain religious faiths. But when you can experience your own connection to the divine, changes everything.
Yeah.
That's real faith. So if you want to talk about faith, that's when it really happens, in my opinion. Yeah.
So did you imagine yourself becoming a minister as a kid?
Not really.
Well, what was
I didn't go into it with that intention necessarily. And I think when I talked to you, Eric, was like, oh, this is awesome. What a great way to, first of all, to be respectful and to honor the mushroom in the way that we do through Psanctuary, and also to provide a community and a safe way, legal to partake in this. I was blown away, and that you were in Kentucky. And I was in Indiana and feeling hopeless. So it was wonderful to find you guys.
So what about your spiritual practice prior to Psanctuary? Were you still involved in the Lutheran Church, or have you been away from church for a while?
Yeah, I'd been away from the church for a while and had explored a whole bunch of different things. I still always had my own practice of yoga and, some meditation and just searching, different things. And I don't ever leave anything out, because I think, every path has something to teach us if we hear it in the right way. So, I followed a teacher for a while. Well, I didn't want to even say follow. We went to groups, and he was somebody that had studied under Gorchev. I don't know if you've ever heard of Gorchev. He was an Eastern mystic. I would call him kind of a weird human being, which many mystics could be considered that.
How have I never heard of this guy?
Remember me talking about Yeshua's bio, and he mentions Gurdjieff and how that led me rediscovering the Kabbalion that one day. Wow. So it's interesting. You're the second person that's brought up this mystic in the last month.
Yeah.
And he was one of our
rebel, I would say, in time period, where the Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church were really powerful, but he saw things in a different way. And this particular man talked about, and he was a minister in the, what is it called? The Disciples of Christ. It's kind of a liberal sect of Christianity, I think, but he studied in the caves of France for years, knew a lot about Mary Magdalene, but had a whole different insight into Christian scriptures, more of what you would see through the mushroom, even the Beatitudes take on a whole different meaning. Yeah. So, yeah. So Psanctuary fits me very well, because it's that environment where you can explore your own connection with the divine, but yet are exposed to other ideas and texts and, discussions around them. I think that's one of the beautiful things, because if you are, if I compare it to Bible study, of which I spent copious years in, you weren't able to discuss anything, really. You couldn't challenge a thought. or see it from a different perspective. It was like, could you memorize this? Could you, would you accept this theology? It wasn't like a discussion about it. And I think that's how we grow and evolve, is through other people's viewpoints.
For sure. Sure.
So having a safe space to talk about personal experiences and challenge or see insights into, let's say, the Tao or whatever reading we're doing, is super healthy, in my opinion, and also much more meaningful than to listen to somebody preach of what you should believe.
That's awesome. That's exactly what we were hoping to create, growing up in that same kind of environment where you're told what to believe. And I can remember being, 7, 8 years old and asking questions and being told not to question. And even still, I was kind of working in meditation yesterday while working or whatever, and just thinking about how, this cliche of that we're not supposed to talk about politics and religion, the two most important aspects of our lives, our spirituality and our government system. And it's the lack of dialogue that allows for dogma to, become so deeply entrenched. We're seeing it in the medical world, I think we need to challenge every idea. There's nothing that is just true because it exists, or at least in terms of ideas.
Yeah. It's just it really, and same thing with truth. And then actually, if you really want to look at things, look at what does it produce. What are the effects in the human life and behavior of a human and how they live, right? So as you guys know, I've been recently taking care of my brother who's handicapped. He's still very entrenched, and I honor that that the church had been somewhat of a community for him and has given him some gifts. But oh my Lord, I've been there where he's begging, crying, I'm not worthy. I'm not even worthy of my next breath. The message he's gotten is that he's not worthy, that he's a scum, that, only by the blood of Christ is he even worthy for anything. And I'm like, dude, do you not know you are Christ?
Yeah. Yes. Isn't that so?
It's like he accepts it, but he just kind of stares at me like.
So it's so departed from the message, like the original messages of, the one we call Jesus.
The nice thing that I got from all those years, if I was on Jeopardy and I could pick biblical stuff, I could win. And so when I get into those discussions, I can say, whoa, bro, how about this passage? Whoa, how about John 14:8? Whatever. I can throw out some stuff and say, look at it this way. Can you see it's different? Yeah.
That's really valuable. And that's something that I, went into studying scripture in my 20s for that very reason, because I wanted to be able to, first and foremost, understand through my own lens what was being said, and then to be able to not confront or defend, but justify or provide a different perspective. There's just, from go, the Bible, it's like right in front of our face. We are ingrained with this monotheistic, there is only one way. But in the very first book, it, quote, God says, let us make men in our own image.
Right.
So the discrepancies, right? The contradictions start from the very beginning. And that to me says that we have to question everything that we're told from then on out. And so I think it's really important to have some level of understanding of these sacred texts for our own perspective.
Yeah, probably all of them. And the one also that teacher I was talking about, minister in the Disciples Christ, he said that what happened in America. So he said how it got to this literal interpretation of the Bible, which is the problem. Literal interpretation of anything is a problem, right? So, but that was the only book. We didn't have books. They're pioneers, and they just had the Bible, and they took it literal. I mean, it was never meant to be a literal text. It was meant to be read with your heart and your soul, and that's how you interpret it. And that your soul can evolve, during your lifetime, and you can see it differently.
Absolutely.
As you change. So it was never meant to be a literal interpretation. And that's where the problem comes in America. It's pretty unique to America. I mean, it might be that way in Canada too, but it's not that way in Europe.
Right. Well, I guess also in at least some branches of Islam, there's a literal interpretation of the Quran. So it's like this fundamentalism in any form that kind of maintains this is the only perspective. Like, it's obviously limiting on the surface, but beyond that, it's detrimental to growth. It facilitates the war and the division that we see right now, which is the opposite message of all of these great leaders.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Which for me highlights the importance of each of us individually being able to have conversations with the divine, with God, however you want to call that ineffable source of creation. Because if we are just solely reliant on being told what God is saying in someone else's words, then we never really are truly able to have an understanding with ourselves. So that's like a big reason why we're doing what we're doing with Psanctuary and the minister programs, to help remind us all that we can have our own conversations with God.
Yeah. And also the feeling. So that's part of when I started looking at this death space and, the fear of death that people have, I'm like, okay, well, I mean, where does religion fit into fueling that fear? Possibly. What's going to happen to me? Because they haven't had a direct experience, right?
Because there's only so many people going to heaven, and I'm probably not one of them.
It could be. They could be worried about that, or what is it? Trying to think of the other one that comes knocking at your door all the time. There's only 144,000 of them.
Right. That one. Yeah.
So your chances go down every year.
So what
the population grows, like the lottery pot gets bigger, right? So
tell our audience how you got introduced into this space. Was there a death in your family that kind of brought this to your awareness, or how did you come here?
I mean, I participated and, was with several family members as they transitioned. I also had a near-death experience where, I got to see and feel what's beyond a little bit and went, whoa, that's pretty cool. Like, my fear of that completely left. And yet I saw so many people afraid. And when I was with people transitioning, like one was my grandma, who I love dearly. We were very, very close. But she was kind of fighting it a little bit, and so each, just like every birth is different. I mean, for those of us that have multiple births, there's really no two births that are the same either. And then the deaths are the same way. I mean, you have your processes, that you got to dilate on a birth to, 10. and with death, it's, there is a definite process. The timing might be a little different. But anyway, she was fighting it a little bit. And I remember just, it kind of came naturally, rubbing her legs and saying, "Oh, Grandma, it's okay to go. It's okay. It's okay," and just like feeling her, holding her like a baby, like saying, "Okay, it's okay. I'm here," So that made me think of how people and also how people looked at it. Family members, especially, it can be really scary. And she was older, and was quite old at the time. I think age has something to do with it. But still, it was looking at it in a completely different thing. Instead of sadness, it was like, oh, girl, you're going to a great place, like just get ready.
Wow. What an awesome gift that is that you have, that comes so naturally to you. Can you talk more about your near-death experience?
Yeah, I was
Just share a little bit about that.
It was, I was in my brothers and I were in a car, we went on a fishing trip. We always went up to this one river in Minnesota all the time since we were kids. And weirdly enough, that's also where my brothers were hit head on from a drunk driver years before. It was a weird, I would love to know about that vortex right around that area. But anyway, it had been raining for days, but the rain had stopped. So we went, okay, we're going to go, camp. We went through the first day. Water was kind of rough, from all the rain, but it was good. Caught a lot of fish. Second day, we're taking the narrow part of the river, and we take off on it. Maybe we'd been on there for about an hour, and all of a sudden that the river was still rising about 6 inches a day from all the tributaries. We weren't thinking about that at the time, but trees started falling. They'd been underwater for a while. They lost their roots.
Wow.
And so we're going down this little John boat with a little electric motor on the end, and these two trees fall right on us. And so my younger brother and I held on to the tree that fell. My other brother from Hawaii went with the boat. He hung onto the boat and went under the trees and was gone. And so we're hanging there and we're in this rough water. It's pulling off our clothes. We lose our shoes, our pants are pulled off. We're trying to pull up and we can't, there's no way we had the strength to, number one, just pull yourself up anyway, but then you're fighting the current at the same time. So we sat there for a while, and it looked like you were going to die. If you let go, you're going to, you were convinced I was convinced this is it. And so I said goodbye to my kids. I said goodbye to my family. I was preparing myself to go. And my brother left. My younger brother said, hey, the only way I see of us out of here is I'm going to let go and I'm going to try to get my feet into these rocks over here, where the current's going. And it may work, it may not. We're going to try that, but that's our only way out. And then you're going to have to let go. And you're going to have to, hopefully I can catch you. That's the only way out of this. So he left and he got in the play. He got his feet in between a bunch of rocks. By the way, his feet were completely black and blue, just holding on to try to get. And I'm hanging there and I'm like, oh, I got to let go. I got to let go. I have to to let go is super freaking scary. And all of a sudden this gold light came around me as absolutely real as anything I've ever experienced. And with several beings that said, it's okay. And time just sat still. It seemed like it was like, I'm sure what was probably 5 minutes or 10 minutes seemed like an hour. And it was just glowing, sparkling gold light. These beings saying, it's okay. We got you. Let go. And I just remember letting go. And it wasn't even like I felt my body. They carried me literally over to my brother. And after that experience, I was like, whoa. That's with me all the time. That's always there. Now you forget about that, but the mushrooms do help me get back to that. Once that connection was made, and then anytime I'm in the mushroom space, even microdose, I can access those same guides. But that opened my mind, definitely. That was,
I bet.
Kind of you could experience on a mushroom journey. You know what I mean? Like you have that connection. So that was so physical for me though. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Were you able to talk about that with anyone when that happened?
Well, and right away after it happened, we also had hypothermia because the water was like in 50 some degrees. and we didn't know where my brother was that went down. We were afraid he was gone. So we were in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
So we find a place we see a house way up on the cliff. Again, we have not closed on the lower part of our body. Keep that in mind. I'm going up to somebody. My other brother says, I'm going to go look for Craig, our brother. And I said, well, I'll go up to the house and get a call into EMS. And you knock on somebody's door with no clothes on the bottom, hi, we could use your help.
Yeah.
Angels carried me here.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. So what about your brother? I guess your brother survived then? Y'all found him down the river?
He was hanging on a tree and he was so traumatized. He got stuck on a tree, actually. Like he got stuck up on it. And he was definitely traumatized because when they found him, he's up there. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed would be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. He's like just singing. He's completely like just trying to leave his mind and not think about it probably. And he was beat up. I mean, the tree had, he was all scraped up and bruised up, and it took a bunch of EMTs. Then the SWAT team comes in, like 5 boats, helicopters. We're on the news. It was such a big story. I have it recorded. I made a video of it. I'll have to send it to you guys sometime. It's pretty funny. But they interrupted the Stanley Cup playoffs, and Minnesota was even in it. And if you know Minnesota, I mean, it's hockey.
Wow. Yeah. Right? That's big.
They broke into the Stanley Cup playoffs and said, breaking news, siblings saved from raging river in northern that. And went through the whole thing. More details at 10.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a big story.
Oh my God. Which brother is the one that bear hunts now? Which one of these brothers?
Well, my little brother that rescued me, he still lives in Minnesota, and he's afterwards, he was like, he really didn't take it as serious as it was. Like, he's just, you know what I mean? Like, oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
That was a sweep, but my brother,
what a rush.
My brother in Hawaii, first of all, his body was not ready for the cold water either. It was, and so he had hypothermia even extra bad, and he will not go in the water anymore. He just doesn't go in. So
can I ask too?
I wish he could have seen the people I did. I wish he could have accessed that piece that,
Well, that's what I would love to ask you about. There's 2 subjects that come up in this story for me anyway. And one of them is miracles. And then the other is entities, right? So you're speaking. What's your perspective on those 2 topics? Do you believe in miracles? Sounds like you believe in entities. Like, how do you view these things?
Yeah, I would say miracles. There's a lot that is packed into that word, because miracles then people get caught up in, well, I'm not experiencing miracles. There must be something wrong with me, or blah, blah. Like they're a blessed event. I think miracles are just an everyday occurrence. It's kind of a freaking miracle I'm breathing today.
Yeah.
My body's functioning, and it's a miracle. So I kind of see everything as a miracle. Now, the grand surprise, I kind of wake up every day. My part of my meditation, I'm going, and I'm ready for the grand surprise. And that could be, I guess some people could call that as a miracle. Like just stuff that happens that we're not expecting. Right. But it's not like I think it's just part of the source.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I think there's all the time. Nature itself, you can look around and see how many miracles are being performed before our very eyes. So what about this thing of entities? Is this a projection, or are they real out there?
I think they're real. Like I just believe that there's different dimensions. We just can't see them because of our our human body, with the way that our senses are. We just can't see them with our eyes. I feel them all the time. Hey, listen, if you're, I gotta believe I'm not unique in this, that you're driving. There's been so many times I've driven and, somehow not paying attention. I'm looking at a hawk over there, whatever. I'm making myself sound like a scary driver, like, would ride with me. But I have felt somebody grab the wheel for sure. A being grabbed the wheel. I didn't turn it.
Whoa.
I did it straight. So I totally believe in those other beings, and I believe they're with us all the time. We just can't see them.
I don't know. Sounds like you've got some pretty strong guardian beings with you. I've never had that happen to me. No beings have taken the wheel on me.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, they've for sure done that. So
now, with Eric looking for mushrooms, definitely.
I don't have a description. I can't say that I've ever seen like angels with the wings, and like I don't have a physical description. It's more of a feeling. Or even on the river, it was a golden glow, but it wasn't like they had human bodies that I could, or, angels or demons or, anything like that. So I know other people can see, have seen more physical, relatable.
I felt like one was going to just manifest out of the ether last night. I was having this, just sitting outside in the dark. Everybody was asleep and it was misty, and I felt so surrounded by just amazing beings. And it started with, I started in this kind of meditation of gratitude, and was reflecting on all the incredible people in our lives, and, Psanctuary and all this. And man, I just kept feeling like I was going to open my eyes and there was going to be some kind of glowing being standing in front of me, because it felt like I was surrounded. And it's ironic to me, growing up in Catholicism, where saints and angels and all these things are such a part of the theology, that it's been so hard for me to come to terms with the reality of interdimensional beings. That's one of the reasons I'm asking you, is because I want more evidence of something that I already know. And I'm ashamed a little bit to say this, but it's just like, it's a reality that it's really hard for me to conceptualize, intelligences that don't have bodies, though I know it's real.
Yeah. So have you ever and this has to do again with my belief and my experience with the afterlife is, have you ever in the mushroom space had a being that has transitioned to another realm, another dimension, visit you?
Oh, I finally, after years and years of systematically gathering evidence as it would occur, have come to believe wholeheartedly, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that my deceased cousin Amy is there helping me in the space. Courtney's grandma has shown up. I've never seen these people, but I'll get these feelings.
Yeah.
And then I have had other people tell me that they see, Amy in particular have told me that they see this figure with me. And I've had multiple experiences of beings that were not deceased humans, that have made themselves known in various ways. So like, I know that it's there, and it's very easy when I'm with the mushroom. It's very easy for me to just accept that this is the reality, but that logical mind that doesn't want to, I don't know, find a space for the illogical is still a challenge for me.
And even the language that we use, I feel like makes it harder for us to wrap our heads around it, or like builds expectations around what these beings should look like they should have an appearance or a form or something like that. Like that one experience we had where your friend who had passed came through me in a mushroom session, and like that experience just went above and beyond and outside any box of what I thought like entities could be like. Like, it's not like they're just one, standalone type of thing that exists outside of us as well.
Well, even ourselves, we limit ourselves believing that we are only confined to these bodies, and as we learn more and more about the deeper natures of reality and understand that we as well exist on multiple dimensions, can open some of that up.
So I want to hear more. I want to talk more about your experience working with people who are at the end of their life, and in the mushroom space in particular. Could you share a little bit more about how you got into this work?
Yeah. So I was like, again, super drawn. It was just something that almost I didn't even have a choice. I did, obviously, but and so I was really, really also didn't want anybody to die alone. And I wanted, as I contemplated my own, life in the physical body, wanted to do it differently. So I wanted to learn more about the body process of, shedding the body. I'll just call it shedding the body because it does die. But, and so I went through courses, a very comprehensive doula training course. And I was lucky in that one to learn a lot about the disease process as well. And just understanding and then observing. I started working with people of like, okay, they get diagnosed with a life-threatening disease. And the initial thing is just freaking shock, horror, fear, all of that. And I saw some people who just stayed there all the way till when they died, like they fought it and all the way. And it was such a shame. It was such a waste of precious time. And then in that process started learning, learning and, head learning, if you will, and seeing through experience that people that had the best deaths were ones that had taken that time to really think about the things that were important to them and do them. So now I'm not talking about a bucket list and doing skydiving. The number one, not that that's anything wrong with that, you can do that, but the things that really give people peace is their relationships. So it's that time, if you can accept it earlier, we all are going to die. I've accepted it. I don't have a terminal diagnosis, but when you get or I shouldn't even say terminal, when you get a life-threatening, because nowadays they don't make you terminal until they've exhausted every single option, no matter what it does to your body. They want to keep that heart beating. So until it's like too close to the end, they say you're terminal a lot of times. So you're losing precious time is all I'm saying, is that the sooner that you face it, that I've seen it, and you intentionally look and experience the rest of that time, healing relationships with family, and that's part of the work of, let's say, my work is to help, and I'm working on it with myself. We all got family shit. It's just the fact, or relationships with maybe friends even, that have, and a lot of that's happened in the last few years where, just read over and over how many families are split over ideologies, black and white, the way politics and all that. So, healing those relationships and having a time to reflect on your life. The people don't go back. The most common thing that people I've worked with in the space have said to me once I first meet with them, well, I really didn't do anything in my life. I really didn't contribute anything. I just, they don't have a very positive outlook on what their life's been. A lot of regret, a lot of, and then fear on the other end. So I'll go, well, let's just take a look at your life once. And sure enough, we spend some time and we go through and go, well, wow, you did that. That was really courageous. And we start really looking. There's no life that doesn't have gifts it hasn't left.
Oh, yeah. That's beautiful.
And that they haven't, there's something, even if they've been a complete butt, shit to certain people, they have contributed somewhere along the line. They have something. So, anyway, so doing that life review and being able to leave sincere, we have a hard time talking, I think, to our loved ones, especially in that space, because if your child and your parents is going to pass away, sometimes those conversations can be very, very difficult. And so we don't get to the heart of things. So even if you have a difficult time because of time, space, relationships, to have those deep conversations, you can have them through video. We can make a life book. We can, there's so many things that can be done in that period if we embrace it earlier. And that's why, for me, a psychedelic, a sacrament experience early on of getting a diagnosis is so important. It's good anytime, but it will open your mind to live what time you have left much, much better. And one of the things without a doubt, any sacrament experience I've had with somebody with a life-threatening illness, the thing they see is profound love. And you know what? It's no bullshit that love does change everything. Love does heal everything. If you took I forget, I should be able to say it up, some of the passages from sacred texts, they will allude and you kind of listen to that. And, if you have not felt that love, you don't really know what they're talking about. But love, I'm not saying healing the body, but feeling that profound love heals the fear. The fear is gone. And with the fear gone, they can truly live the rest of the time that they have. Have those conversations and be in that love space to have those conversations with family and friends and with themselves.
That's so beautiful. You saying that about, like going ahead and facing it now, and that being able to empower us to take initiative to, for me, like thinking about my parents, that this is inspiring me to create a life book like what you just suggested. I want to learn more about how people do that. It's so beautiful to think about that process with them, just like learning more, taking that opportunity to learn more about their life and put it down on paper now, even though they don't have any kind of life-threatening diagnosis.
No.
Fortunately.
And also just think about that. We don't typically with our parents and maybe our loved ones, even our siblings, whatever, we don't have those deep conversations very seldom with our family. Isn't that funny? Like I thought about it, like how we can with our friends or like, I'll do with members. We'll have these deep conversations, but for some reason, family, we tend not to. So when we get in that love space, we're able to more. And when we have a limited time, my son shared this with me too. I thought about this. And when you think about mortality, just the whole idea of mortality, compared to other, if you think of other beings and he always shares this, I guess it's stoicism. No, it's from Achilles, actually, supposedly said this, that the gods envy us because of our morality, because every experience is so much richer because of our mortality.
Yes. Yeah. That was the experience I had at the celebration, which I want to talk about.
Yeah.
As well.
So if you think about that, if we as a society in general are going through most of our life fearing and hating death. I don't want to get old. I don't want to die. We do everything we can not to. Instead of like, if we thought about it like, fuck yeah, I'm mortal. So every one of these moments are extra special. Like there's a lot of beings that don't get to do this. Yay.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
So,
that's so beautiful.
What kind of changes have you seen in people after having sacrament experience prior to their departure?
Just so much more love. I mean, the fear, a number one fear being gone, right? The fear is gone. And then just gratitude and love in each day, just peacefulness, much more peacefulness. And everybody's different. I mean, some of them need more processing to get to that point. You know, they get it that from the experience, but to keep it going, that's why I think like community around, I have noticed that just like we've seen in other groups in Psanctuary, veterans or people against sobriety, whatever, those with terminal life-threatening illnesses have a lot to share that they don't want to share with their family. And they like a group. It's good for them to be a group, or they have a doula they can share these things with. So like if a doula's role is really to be the companion of a person facing, life-threatening death in the process of dying, is their buddy. You hold their hand, and it's just kind of their companion, and for them only, advocate for them. Of course you care about the family, but what comes first is that being. So if the family's saying, we don't want you to die, and so we want you to do this, experimental treatment that's going to make you super sick because we just don't want to let go. We're a family. And the patient goes, no, I don't want to do that. Then the doula will advocate for the person on what they want and explain, and work with the family to be able to accept it. What I do find also a new person that I'm just working with, and I don't know, we haven't got to the point about talking about doing a psilocybin, but most people, and depending if they have families, there's a lot of people out there that don't either have any families. That's another thing, caregivers. But most people that I find are just really afraid. I had somebody come up at actually another minister at my granddaughter's wedding. She said, I have pancreatic cancer and I'm so scared. I've had it for a year, but now things are going south. Will you walk this walk with me? And when you're coming from a place that you've seen it and you're not afraid of it, and just, helping people, just through the process, because it's beautiful. If some people, everyone's different, but if I can tell them when they get closer to a time, a transition time, I'll say, and I've seen this, okay, and I think it's just freaking amazing. As your body is going down, as it's shutting down, it's gonna happen to all of us. Your spirit gets stronger. What you can see, that's why you hear about people. It's not drugs or that they're visualizing these. They'll say, "Oh, my husband's here," or "My mom's here." Or they'll see beings, right, that have passed before them. And I used to think it was hallucinations from the morphine. It's not. I've been around people like that aren't on any painkillers and have the same experience. And it's because your spirit is getting stronger. It's just held down somewhat with this body we have. And they go pack a bag. I'm going on a trip. I mean, they seriously will get out of bed and go want to pack a suitcase.
Wow.
Because they're told, I'm going on a trip. I'm going on a great adventure. So again, that's, those experiences have helped me understand. Yeah, you are going on an adventure. Let's get excited about it.
Wow. What an awesome job that you have.
It's incredible.
What great work.
If we all start looking at it that you don't want to obsess about it when you don't have a life-threatening illness, but if we just have it in the back of our minds, we live freer.
Mm-hmm. Well, and if we can, this is something that I've been really working with and working through, and it came up for me at the celebration quite a bit. But if we can really become aware of our immortality as well as our mortality,
right,
then it can be an adventure all the time.
Exactly. Yes.
And what you're saying, the reason I just got teared up there is like, God, my grandpa, when he passed away from colon cancer, I was working in a restaurant. I was standing in the deep freeze, loading stuff, and all of a sudden, my grandpa was just there. I didn't see him, but like I started crying. Like I was like, "What the hell?" I just didn't understand it, because I felt like my grandpa was standing right beside me. And 30 minutes later, my dad called and told me that he had passed. And it just really strikes me, like I think about lately, I'm just with my kids. I'm like, I'm so happy in my life. I'm more satisfied in my life than I have ever been. And, something that comes up for me, like I said, at the celebration, one big thing, seeing Courtney so joyful and playful. And it's like, I don't ever want to lose these humans, these people that are so important, these spirits that mean so much to me. And the reality is that we won't. We never will.
Yeah, right.
It's incredible. So just to be aware of that, and really bring that into our lived experience.
Yes. Yeah. And so that makes everything different. Think about it. Like other cultures have done this, what we talk about Halloween and, this time, right? The Day of the Dead, because other cultures honor that. They feel their ancestors with them. They believe that they're with them and feel them every day. Native Americans, indigenous people. And I would love to see that happen for us.
Well, I think the more we become psychedelic, it's just inevitable. It's inevitable. Yeah. We're gonna end up with face paint and headdresses in 200
That's what
years.
I did at the celebration. I got
that was awesome.
It took me over in a big way. I just didn't necessarily have all the right materials, but
you worked with what you had.
Hey, you had some pretty cool mushroom LED string lights. Yeah, that was very impressive. I love that.
You just bring such good vibes.
Yeah.
It just, you're such a good fit for this work. Having worked with, I don't know, I've probably worked with 5 or 7 terminal patients. The most recent was back in December, who passed away very shortly thereafter. And it really does take a special kind of spirit, a special energy to be able to be in that space and have that knowing, that optimistic knowing that you are on a great adventure.
Yeah. So very similar to psychedelic. You go into the mushroom space, right? And it holding space. It's kind of holding space in just a slightly different way. But
well, I wanted to ask you, there's as I understand that, I've never read the Egyptian Book of the Dead. I want to. It's definitely on my list. But there is this belief in many cultures, but particularly within the Egyptians, as I understand it, that the way that you die affects, how you enter into the next life.
Yep.
And so the work that you're doing in providing people a peace as they transition, I think has so much more of an implication than just what we experience in this kind of tertiary day-to-day reality. Right?
Yeah. Right. And also, if you think about it, it also has a major effect on what is called survivors. So, the people that are left on this earth plane for them, they have a better experience. I mean, there's no doubt there's going to be grief. I mean, grief is part of the human experience. We need to grieve more. We need to grieve, and respect that when there's endings of any kind, but in this process, there's going to be that. But if you witness it in a different way, the people that are passing, and honestly, I kind of feel like, obviously, not everybody would take advantage of this, but I feel like then in being able to partake in the sacrament as a person still on this earth plane, and being able to feel them and communicate with them. You don't need the sacrament necessarily to do that, but it's very helpful. So I feel like the people that are grieving, that it's a gift that can both ways. They see the person they love have a beautiful transition. It's a beautiful celebration. I mean, what typically I do, if allowed, and most people want this, is, we'll have candles, we'll have beautiful music, we'll have, the right kind of, some scents that they like. We'll have people around, maybe singing to them and laughing, whatever the person wants, but make it, we're not just standing and staring at them. Well, when are you going to go? We're making it a beautiful, type of thing. So
that's a neat idea. I never thought it, because like I've heard this, it's said in some people's near-death experiences and whatnot, that when you transition, that there's a celebration, like there's a entourage there to welcome you and celebrate your arrival. So to have a celebration on this side that's celebrating your departure, and one on that side that's welcoming you in, that's such a neat idea.
Wow. Love that.
And that makes the people that are there think about it totally different. I'm not saying that it takes away all grief, but it does. It does leave a better. Now, if you witness that, you're going to have less fear of death.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you might live better. Yeah.
So what's you mentioned meeting another minister up there, I'm assuming from a different faith or church or whatever, who had pancreatic cancer. I'm assuming that's not a sanctuary minister. I'm really curious what it means to you to be a minister. As I explore this myself, I mean, within and without of this context of end of life, but what does it mean to you to be a minister of sacred mushrooms?
Well, you know what? And that's one I have definitely given a lot of thought to. Just the word, again, just the word, what the history of what I've experienced as the word. I've gone through feelings of like, I mean, who am I to be doing this? Like, I'm not worthy. And so when I face any of those things, I just am like a vessel. I'm just a vessel. And what is a minister? A minister is just to serve. It's just to serve. And that's what I love about Psanctuary, and in particular, you guys. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to have the willingness and the love, and the open-mindedness. I don't expect, although I could, I'm sure I could do some miracles, heal some people. I don't know, if I'm selected to do that. But otherwise, I just want to keep myself in the best place, like my mind and my body and soul energy is pure, and being able to, again, connect with the bigger picture to bring that love, that service, that healing to anybody that comes in my path.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful. I think that's what it is. I don't think you could be a minister with no church. And be a minister.
Yep. This is the church. Right here.
Right.
So when you're working with, I guess I want to know more about the process of working with people who have a terminal or a life-threatening diagnosis, and the conversation around bringing in psilocybin to that process of death doula-ship. Is that always a conversation you have with people who want death doula support?
I offer, I give them the information. Some people, that's a really far for them. Other people, I would say the younger you are, the more, open-minded. And I've talked to a lot of my friends. I have several friends that lost their spouse young from, in their 40s, and it was from pancreatic cancer, or 50s. And what a horrible, she was like, oh my God, if we would have had psilocybin available, both for my husband and for our family, it would have been really, really helpful. So, so bringing it up and offering it, like I said, some people, and the younger you are, and I think, again, I would probably, the problem in the doula world is that they typically don't get in touch with you or reach out for that. You'll even talk to estate attorneys who will tell you this. They're a month from dying.
Yeah.
They're far down the path. So sometimes it's not an option by that time, physically. So that's why I'm really, my hope and my mantra that I'm bringing out there is, come on, let's face it early. Let's face it early. Yeah, just because you're facing it doesn't. I was reading about this from another person the other day. We somehow think that if we talk about death or we contemplate it, it's going to come faster.
Yeah, no, it's true. That comes up to me.
Kind of dumb.
It is.
When you think about it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, no, don't wait that long. And I wrote it into my advance directive, like for my family, that, I want to consume the sacrament, like at these stages, and I don't want anybody to get, that's my wish, that they're very detailed. And it's okay to do that. I don't think I'm going to die sooner just because I did that. I'm living better.
Knock on some wood, Debbie.
So, yeah. So does that answer your question about psilocybin? Some people, are ready for it, and some people just,
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about, and I would think the people listening would be curious about, is how receptive people are to this.
I think getting the message out and also making it available for people to reach out and get more information. The patient themselves, their spouse, if they have one, their kids, their friends might be poo-poo about it, but they're not in that space. So it's really that person individually is who would be curious many times, but is talked out of it, or worried about what the family's going to think, or worried about this or that,
Yeah.
How do you talk with families that are concerned or that are distrustful of that, of the mushroom?
I really give them the information on the research, that has been done on end of life, psychedelic use, specifically psilocybin has been really, really good.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of information about that, and then give them, testimonials of people that I work with, and that we already know the pharmacology behind it, and it really doesn't. That's the beauty of our sacrament, is it has the least contraction, like it's the safest of any of them out there. And then just once they know, the family, most often they'll relent if their mother, father, sister, brother want to, they're not going to make it difficult, but Yeah. There are some, though. There are some of those family members.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
The control freak yeah.
Well, and there's just been so much misinformation put out about psilocybin and psychedelics generally that it's understandable why people would be resistant. Fortunately, we have so much medical research and information that's proving the safety and efficacy now, and the personal experiences that are getting out there, and people like yourself that are really just incredibly courageous and just doing what is right despite whatever the environment is, and I mean, I know we are incredibly honored that you are performing this service within under the umbrella of Psanctuary, so to speak. And I'd love to, we've talked a little bit about this in our meetings, and Debbie is really spearheading the development of this ministry for Psanctuary, and it's been incredible seeing what you're bringing to the table, and all of this is so professional and so thoughtful. And I wonder if you might share a little bit of your, vision as it stands now, understanding that it's always evolving as to what this ministry could look like as it develops and grows through the years.
Well, I probably in tandem with communities of, sanctuary communities, if we want to call it that. I think about it in terms of old tribes, in indigenous ways. And there was always, there was the medicine person, but I think each community should have a doula not that we all can't be that, but we don't all need to be. Have somebody there to it's part of ministering, if you will, to the community. It's part of that community experience. I hope that it ends up being more like that, just like a birth would be. You're going to have somebody that's kind of like a midwife birth doula, and help bring them in. And, I was also thinking about life or birth and death, about how the indigenous people and how I'd like to see us go back as community of, we're in this together. So many people don't even, because of religion, they're not having funerals anymore. They have a celebration kind of life. And but it's not real. It still is mostly sadness and not like the celebration like it could be. Same thing with birth, with people not, rightfully so. There's reasons they're not getting kids baptized. They don't necessarily have a celebration of a birth anymore. So kind of having the doula part being just part of a new way of living in community that goes back to these basic things, and we're in it together. We have all the support around us.
Which that kind of comes back and reflects on this peer support that we're building through Psanctuary, right? I mean, I am not negating the need for medical professionals within birth and death or within psychedelic care. There's value there, but that doesn't have to be the only avenue through which we have these experiences. So like, Courtney having had 4 children, 3 of which were born in hospitals and 1 of which was born in our home bathtub. I know which one I prefer now, and it's definitely the bathtub birthing, but I had one son that was breech, and thank God we had a hospital that he could go to and come out healthy like that. And so just presenting more options for us to be support to each other, where all of these life processes are no longer detached from our day-to-day experience. It's really important.
And along with that, there's also something I think important to be said about the conscious awareness of like being mindful of these different life processes like birth and like death. Like speaking of a child who is breached, like, it's not the only option to have that corrected at the time of birth, and like with death, being aware of our that we will die, and consciously like having a practice of having that conversation with ourselves and our families and our communities before it gets to be a week before, like we have a terminal diagnosis, can make that process of transition so much more enjoyable. Having that built in to our communities can, mean that we're not having this tertiary need, last minute, that we've built in this conversation with our community over time, like a slow drip. And it's not like some.
And as that becomes more normalized, if you will, then, other people will witness it, in the community, and it'll just become part of life. Like, because, and then handed down to generations after that, that's just, we've just gotten so far away from it, we've just overall, I mean, just all you have to do is look around. I mean, I live in a subdivision, and people don't even go out of their houses. They don't talk to each other. I mean, we're so isolated. It's crazy.
And I think, a big part of that, how do I want to say this without, pissing anybody off, but maybe whatever. I just don't care if somebody gets pissed off. But, so much of that is driven by insurance and corporate medical hospital. We want, to charge $800 for a Tylenol kind of thing. Same thing in psychedelic work, $3,000, $5,000, $7,000 for a facilitated experience. When the truth is, the vast majority of births, deaths, and mushroom trips can be supported by someone that you know and love already. It doesn't have to be outsourced at some ridiculous expense to someone who is deemed a professional because they have some kind of, certification. And not to say that there isn't value in training. You've done a lot of training for your death doula work, but it's in the experience that you're learning. It's in actually working with the people that you're really growing and learning the skills that it requires.
Well, and also you could probably take this as more of, I don't know, like on the doula work, I'm dealing with more of the soul of the person. I mean, I know the body part, but the medical, where medical plays a role, even in hospice or down, is I can't prescribe painkillers. I can't prescribe, but what the number one, this was kind of shocking to me. The number one medication used in hospice is, yes, morphine's big, but it's just for breathing. It's mostly for breathing. It does, of course, have some effect on pain, but it helps people breathe.
Really?
But the biggest one is Ativan. What is Ativan? It's an anti-anxiety medication.
Really?
It's Xanax. It's the same. So it's really helping people with their anxiety, which is a spiritual thing, I believe. I feel. So that's again where the sacrament plays in. If you take that fear away and the anxiety, and you're just telling them, hey, this is just part of the process. Yeah, you're gonna feel these sensations in your body. I mean, this is what's happening. It's okay. You can take some of that away. It's not that anxiety away. But anyway, medical intervention is really just for pain and anxiety. But it's important. I mean, I'm not going to take away the importance of relieving pain.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't have to be real big. Same thing with the birth, like you said, 9 times. It's, what is it? Less than 10% are probably breach or have complications of that way.
Next time, Courtney's catching her own baby.
Next time in the next life.
I was at my daughter's. My daughter in Grand Rapids, my grandson was born in a birthing tub. I mean, they brought a blow up tub into their master bedroom, and they had a midwife, and he was born right in, whoop. And the other one was born into the water too. They're both pretty good swimmers.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that we plan to have our daughter, who's now 2, at home, because honestly, I don't think we would have had time to get to the hospital anyway. She came so much faster.
Scenario
oh my gosh.
But, it actually, like, this this conversation of how we die impacting our entry into the next life is relevant here, because how we're born surely impacts our expectations and, experience in this life.
Yeah. Absolutely. Though that's coded into our cells, how we're born. And, that's proven. Like the environment that, or what precursors. There's a lot of birth processing that people do in the psychedelic space, believe it or not.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
There and yeah. So I totally believe that. And if you think about that, what you guys said about the birth at home, how that experience was, and how I think back about my grandson and the midwife showing me the tree of life in the placenta. Or not the placenta,
the placenta.
Showed me the tree of life, and they harvested the berries to use, as after recovery for the mother's body, like all this natural stuff, and being able to sit there and hold that baby and be with it, not whisked away, not immediately even having to cut the cord, like just it's just a softer, more loving. So think about that on the opposite end of the birthing into the next life. Same thing.
Right?
I'm just imagining I die, and all of a sudden they take me into a room and they're checking me out and making sure all my stuff is good.
Yeah. Right.
No wonder there's a soft white light and an entourage of family members when you pass into the next round.
Yeah. Right. And then and also on the birthing side, by dying at home, which is becoming more and more common. Most people want to die at home, and there's no reason to die in a hospital unless it's, something unexpected. Now you do have the opportunity to also, a lot of people don't know this. You don't have to, when somebody dies at home, you don't have to immediately call the coroner. You can be with that person and their body, and it's good. It's actually healthy for you for hours, actually days. You have 3 days.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, you want to do some body care. Body care is important for the remains, like ice it and, stuff like that. But what's most traumatic on people that are, I'll still call them survivors, but basically family that's behind, is that fact of wisping. That's been part of it. Get that body out of here. Like it's something wrong with the body, right? Like, get that body out of here. Oh my God, I got a dead body in here. And they're not processing. You're taking it away so quickly. So think about it on the birth end for you, Courtney. If they whisk that baby away, you don't have time to process this new life, this beautiful new life that you have here. So if you do the same thing on the death end, you don't have time to process what just happened.
Gosh, I've not thought of that or even thought to ask, like, how long does one have?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
There's so many things that we just assume because that's just the way we do it.
It's what we see in movies
and also, home wakes that, or home funerals are definitely, people are going back to that if possible. And it would be beautiful to have a facility that was more like that. So the big old houses, right? If you think of the parlor, there was a parlor and a living room. The parlor is where the body was. The living room was called the living room because that's where the living went.
Oh,
that's where that word living room actually came from.
Ding, ding.
So you had the wake and the funeral in the home. It only, it's just, again, once the funeral industry got established during, I think it was the Civil War was the first time we embalmed bodies.
Really?
So it started to become a business then, but as it grew, it just became normal and expected, and in some case litigated that you had to do it that way.
It's incredible. All of our institutions, everything it's just a believed tradition that's been passed down until we assume that it is the way that things work always, and it's really interesting. I think psychedelics have such a wonderful way of kind of opening our minds to different possibilities and
Right.
seeing outside of those boxes. Well, I'd love if we could kind of take this. I want to try to bridge into the celebration conversation with what my request for my end of life. Living in Jamaica, one of the first things, well, just even visiting Jamaica, one of the things that I became so enamored with early on was how they manage death, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have 2 days for the individual. One day is a day of mourning, and then there is a day of celebration. And the day of celebration is usually about 15,000 times bigger than the day of mourning. They call it setup. And it's just a huge, depending on how popular, how well known, the person was, depends on how big the party is. But I mean, everybody comes out. They got, grills lining the road and grilling chickens and music playing. And it is a community wide party. And seeing that, I just thought that is what I want. Life is to be celebrated. Transition is to be celebrated. Yes, there is mourning and grief, but let that mourning and grief come and go, and then let the celebration begin, and let that be how we kind of continue on. And that was in large part, or is in large part, a perspective that I carry into the mushroom work. Yes, there will always be this deep, sometimes mournful, challenging work to be done in recovering from trauma. And then there is the celebration that should come afterwards, right? They can, just like in instance with this Jamaican style, setup or passing, they can happen very closely together, right? And so that's in large part the energy, the vibe that I was trying to bring into this idea of the celebration, that we can celebrate our healing, we can celebrate our recovery, and that celebration itself is a healing experience as well. So, as a participant in that, I'm so curious. We're yet to have our integration call that we're going to be having here within the next week or two. But I am really, really curious how you experienced that whole thing, particularly in comparison to other sacrament work that you've done.
Oh, yeah. Well, for one thing, I had not been in a big group before taking the sacrament. That alone, having that was, I did the subtle sacrament before in a group and stuff but with this intention, okay, the intention of having fun or letting, celebrating, and then with with all of the ministers, it was, and being able to be free. I think the other thing is when you said celebration, I remember when you talked about it on the call, and this part of me, I don't know if you want to call it the inner child, or I'll just say it's a part in the internal family system, went, yay, we're going to have fun. Like, it was just that part of me was so excited about just the concept of fun. So, so watching pretty much everybody was having fun in their own way, but still together, and seeing that come out, like for you, Eric, I laughed. I laughed every time you'd run by. You had the biggest smile on your face, smiling, and I'm like, oh my God. It made me smile. It made me so happy to see you smiling so much. And Courtney, what can I say? I was living through you. I was feeling it in my body, that exuberance of just flying like a butterfly. And then coming up, I would say I had the same feeling. And I want to make more note of this, but you coming up and going, I just love you guys. You were just so much love. And, but being able to, freely do that. And I went in and I was like, I'm going to paint my face. And I in the tent and, did the thing and had my little mushroom hat. And I was feeling, and that felt both playful and this just kind of fun of being part of a tribe. Maybe it's the tribe feeling I had or something, but that love thing, that is one of the things I've experienced a lot in the mushroom space. And it felt good at the celebration to be free to let that go as far as you want. But I get so full of love. I feel like I'm going to explode sometimes. Does that happen to you? Like, I was just like, oh,
that's why I was running so fast.
You probably did. You needed to do it. That was love energy propelling those legs after a while. It had to be.
Yes, it was.
Physically, your body was probably not
so tired the next day,
not wanting it.
Imagine what would have come out if she would have just sat still.
Oh my God!
I love you.
Yeah. Would have been similar. Yeah.
But that's. And that's a gift of the sacrament in that environment was great. But also I've seen it in the ones with end of life, that profound feeling of, oh my God, the love is so big. It's so intense. It's like, oh my gosh. So, and I think probably our work as we continue to do this and be part of this is our vessel expands more and more. Like Courtney, your vessel's expanded now into your legs, your arms, your wings. Like your love has got lots of other places it feels comfortable going and moving.
Yeah.
And I think that we expand as we expand our consciousness, so does our vessel expand to be able to hold and give that love out. So you were giving it.
Yeah, I love how you just put that like as we, like our love expands and our vessel expands, because when I first started communing with the mushroom, like it felt uncomfortable to feel that heart expansion and all that love. Like it scared me. It was like, oh, what is this? Like, I don't know how to channel this. And it just, oh God, it almost hurt. Like you were saying, it felt like my heart was going to explode and it just felt scary. But as I've continued this practice and learned like, oh, it's love. Like it's nice. Like, oh, this is me. Like this is experiencing life at its core.
Yeah.
And embracing it and just, learning how to channel it and spread it is so beautiful. And like going back to what you were saying earlier, what I heard was like, we get to be here having this human experience. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. We get to be here and do this.
Yeah.
What a gift.
Yeah. So I'm all for the celebrations. It was, really wonderful and really, and also it was such a perfect timing on the onset of the festival, because it just, and then to be with the community the whole time, during the festival was just, it was, I mean, I described it to my family, was like, hey, it was like being, living for a few days in the world we all know is possible. Our hearts know is possible. And being in that space for 3 days had made it even more of a reality that, wow, this is possible to live like this. Yes. The other one of my other fond memories, and I think it was that night, oh my God, this will be etched in my mind for the rest of my life. I'm not kidding you. It was one of the most sacred, beautiful moments ever. And it was Lenore and Russell and Tristan and Gary and I around that little fire pit. And we were playing songs, and there's a song, My Back Pages by Bob Dylan wrote it, but the lyrics are phenomenal. They're just, I have thought of those lyrics in the mushroom space so much. And we were playing the rendition by America, which is slow, and we're all singing it together in unison and thinking deeply about this, and it was just so beautiful. I'll never forget that.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Gosh, well, thank you, Debbie, for being such a rich part of our community and spreading this love that you have and this knowledge that you have, that you've come into and had direct experience with around transition. Like, it's such a beautiful thing for our community. And I'm really excited for your workshops that are coming up and just beginning that direct conversation with our community around transition and death.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that which, by the way, we probably should mention November, those 2 workshops are really to help people just start understanding that there is a different way. Right. And then about our Sacred Passage program, and how that looks and how it works. And those are on November 9th and November 11th. So Thursday night and a Saturday. So hopefully the different time zones will be able to, have options there.
And remind me, are those for members only or non-members is open?
It could be non-members.
Yep.
Okay.
Open to community as a whole. Don't have to be a member to come.
Excellent.
Yep.
Excellent.
And so, and just one thing on that, I wanted to say about the ministries in general and how I see Psanctuary going with, and our discussions have been with kind of specialties in certain areas with veterans, with sobriety. And I was explaining this to somebody the other day, and we were talking about what does it mean to be a minister? And to me, what I really love about Psanctuary, and I hope we can keep it that way always, is it's an outreach to help all of humanity. Like whether you join Psanctuary or not, it's like our outreach, it's our gift we're giving the world. And we're able to also give the gift of the sacrament, which is unique to us, but I think it's more the heart. It's the heart that's coming out of Psanctuary to serve. And let me compare it to, I was in the social enterprise space for a long time, was the chairman here. And a lot of churches would have a social enterprise, which they thought was a ministry. And I'll give example of one. They were selling clothes. They're having women make clothes. And the mission was to get women out of strip clubs, like human trafficking stuff. But they also were forced to accept the Christian faith in all of its, whatever that denomination was, in order to get that benefit. I love that we are going out and offering all these things to people without saying you have to adopt a certain dogma. It's like, giving them a hand, but taking something, it's conditional.
Yeah.
That's conditional love. I feel like what we're doing is unconditional love. And that's what it's all about.
I love that. I love that. And you are such a big part of that. The spirit that you bring into this is such a foundational element. And I'm really, really grateful for you, Debbie.
Well, thank you. I'm grateful for you too.
Likewise.
So much. I wouldn't be here if you weren't here.
We wouldn't be here if you weren't here.
We're all in this together.
Yeah, we're in it together. Right here doing it. Well, thank you so much, Debbie. What a great conversation we've had today.
Don't forget though, Psilocybin says something very important to Debbie, I'm sure.
That's right. Our question that we always ask at the end of each episode: what does psilocybin say to you, Debbie?
I have to think of consistency over the whole thing. Really, it's love. It really is love for me, because love heals all. Yeah. It's just that profound energy. It's an energy too. It's not a thought. It's not a feeling. Psilocybin gives me that gift all the time. And it's a unique gift. It's not a thought. It's a different delivery. It's a different thing.
It's an experience. Totally. It's a direct experience with it.
It is.
I mean, isn't I've never really thought about it like this, but the mushroom, in its ability or its function to meet everyone where they are and give them exactly what they need in that moment, is that not the embodiment of unconditional love?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's what unconditional love is. It meets you where you are. It doesn't have an expectation of you, and it gives you what you need in that moment, and without asking for anything in return, just as you are.
And with love, like I mean, it just gives it, whatever you need.
Sometimes love isn't always gentle.
Right? That's true.
Think about some of what the mushroom has given me that I needed. That wasn't easy.
Yeah.
But it was love.
Yeah. It's true though. Yeah.
Debbie, thank you so much for being such a wonderful member of society and Psanctuary and a guest on our podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you as well.